We are going to talk about syntax and logical errors. Syntax are the rules of how a programming language works. So much like a spoken language, like English, we have rules. We have rules on how we make sentences, how we make paragraphs, we have grammar rules. Those are all considered syntax. So the same thing applies for a programming language like Python. In Python, we cannot have any spaces in between our letters when we create variable names or function names. We can add an underscore, and that helps to break it up so it's easier to read. But again, no spaces in between our letters. We use a hashtag to start a comment line so that we understand it is just additional information, it is not code. We use quotation marks to enclose a string, and we indent so that we can define our code blocks. We get errors when we don't follow the rules. So let's look over here. What do you think is missing? We're missing the quotation marks. Yellow should be a string, so it should be enclosed in quotation marks. What about here? What's missing here? We are missing the closing parentheses. So these are both examples of syntax errors. Logic is thinking in a way that makes sense to a computer. It determines the flow of a program. So you want to make sure that you are following your algorithm and doing things correctly so that you do not get any logical errors. So for instance, if you're doing math operations, you want to make sure that you're using the correct symbols. You wouldn't want to use a multiplication symbol like this when you're trying to add two numbers together. You want to make sure you use the correct input parameters, and you always want to double check your plan or your algorithm to make sure you're following the steps correctly. We get logical errors when we do or when our program does something unexpected. These are sometimes harder to find. So here, this looks great. It says set the background to winter. There's absolutely nothing syntactically incorrect about this. However, when we investigate a little further, looking at our comment, it wants us to create a summer background. So we have the wrong input parameter here. Looking at this, num1 times num2, again, that looks syntactically correct. However, when we investigate a little further, we see we were trying to get the sum of two numbers. So we should use the addition symbol, not the multiplication symbol. Let's see what kind of error we have here. We want to have a parameter that is a string at the very end. So taking a closer look at this is not a string. This should be enclosed in quotation marks, and then we should be fine. Right here, let's see, we're missing our closing parentheses. So this is an example of a syntax error. We need to add that closing parentheses. This last one here, again, this looks great. I don't see anything syntactically incorrect about this, but when we investigate a little further, we realize we were trying to create a square. So we have here codesters.circle, we're creating a circle. So this is a logical error.